Hey guys, it's Tommy Gunn from Cracked Rabbit Gaming, and this is going to be sort of a part two to my previous video that was the program overview, where I kind of went over everything in the program. And you don't have to watch that one first, but it would be a good idea if you are familiar with the program already. Then maybe you'll probably be fine, or you can always go back and watch that afterwards if you have questions. So I'll kind of recap where we are. We created there's a default map that's automatically created with a new project, but then we just changed the dimensions of it a little bit, we changed the name, and we also changed the tile set to use the exterior tile set. And so that's all we did there. And now I'm just going to clear this out a bit so we can start over just with the rectangular tool, and I'll just draw a little bit around here just so we have something here. And let's also add a second map just so there's a little bit more going on. So we're still in this A tab here, which is still auto tiles, which mean they kind of change depending on the shape that you're making. And these top ones, you can do like a full square, and it'll put, depending on the tile, it'll put rounded corners, for instance, like all the way around it. But then you have some sort of different tiles, and these are like wall tiles. And with these ones, they will just put something on the sides. So like, it gets kind of weird if you're adding like a weird shape. They're kind of meant to be more of a square, so it'll put just the sides of the building on there. And then above these are, you can kind of tell that this is a roof. Some of them, you might not know exactly what this is supposed to be, but you can play around with it to figure it out. And so you can just test out different ones. Got a roof here. So I'll just make this simple building, and you'll notice that there's a shadow that it automatically added. I forgot to mention before, here's a shadow tool, so you can paint in more shadows if you want, although you kind of, in this case, that's probably the way you want it. And now we will, let's add a second map here. So we'll say new map, and we'll just say house and interior, and we'll just leave the size the way it is. And so you'll see that it nested it under the test map that we have. Actually, we can change this to outside. And you can organize your different maps this way. It doesn't matter how they're organized, it's really just for your convenience, so you know that this house is exists in this, inside this field or whatever. So back to here. Now let's add an event, and I'll actually right click here and go to quick event creation to make a door. And all this does is this is just creating an event and pre-filling it with certain things, but you could actually do this manually. So let's double click so we can see our door options here, and you have some different ones here you can choose from. So I'll just choose this door, and destination, we'll click here, choose the house, and there's nothing here yet, so we maybe should have created something in there first, but I'll just click there. And so now we have a door, and if you now double click on it to bring it up, you'll see what this quick event added. So it added a sound effect, which we are not going to hear because I have music and sound effects turned off, but you will probably hear it if you have that turned on when you're in your own game. And this move route is an animation, so the way they do it is this event, this sounds confusing, but turn left, wait, turn right, turn up, and through on. So what that's doing is, because of the way this animation works, if you look at a person, you'll see they're facing down, they're facing left, facing right, facing up. And then as it scrolls through left and right here, this is like the walking animation. And so if they're walking to the left, it'll just keep scrolling back and forth, between these three images to make it look like they're walking. And then this is always the same order in which they're facing. So they're always facing down, then left, then right, then up. So if you look at the door, and if I move this out of the way a little bit, it says turn left. So that would be this next animation, then turn right, which would be this animation, and then turn up, which would be the bottom one, or frame, I guess I should say. This bottom frame, which is clear, so it'll just make the door disappear at that point. So that's just a way to animate it. And there are different ways of animating things, but anyway, this is the way that doors work, and you can change the timing on this if you change the weights. And then it sets a move route to what this is doing is it's making your player move up one step, so it looks like they're walking through the door. And another sound effect, and then it transfers the player. And so these are all commands you can add by double-clicking to add a new command. And there's 3 tabs, as you can see. Transfer player, that's that one at the bottom. And you can look through these and you can hover, and it should tell you what it does. But for now, I will just point out some other stuff that's going on here. So this automatically has walking animation off, stepping animation off. All this stuff is unchecked, and the movement is fixed. It's not moving anywhere. Priority, as I explained before, below just means you can walk on top of it. Same means you can bump into it, and above means it's floating above you and you can walk under it. So it's the same as characters, so you can bump into it, and it's triggered by player touch. So when you actually touch this event, it will run this stuff in the window. So, well, let's go to the house and let's just fill this with some stuff. So make sure we are in our map view here and not the event view. And then I'll just fill this with something. I'll just throw a tile here to indicate that this is where the doorway is, and so when you walk onto that spot you'll transfer back. So now let's add a new, not door, since we don't actually want a door animated there, but just a transfer, and retain. So if you walk left to right onto this, or right to left onto this, should it retain the direction you're facing or not? And in this case, I'll always want the character to go down, to be facing down, because it's coming out of the house. So we'll click on outside, click below the door, and hit OK. Go back here, and now I just want to make sure that this transfer point is set up correctly. So instead of double clicking on this, because if you double click, it's gonna ask you to just add a new command, and that's not what we want. We want to edit this one. So you can go to edit if you right click, or you can hit spacebar, which is faster. So now it brings up this box, and now let's see. So I did not put actually I was pretty close. So I'll put that 1 square above, and you can put it on the same spot as this doorway, but I'll show you why it's better to always be 1 square away. So now let's just play test this. Save it. Oh yes, and I'm a dog. Forgot to mention. So this door should work, and now I'm up here. So that all worked correctly. And this is why you want to add it 1 square away. So now this just makes it a little easier. Like, say I accidentally walked through the door, it makes it easier to just hit the opposite direction and I go through, instead of if I was on this square, I would have to walk up and then walk back down, and it's just a little weird. That's not something you do in real life. If you accidentally walked through a door, you'd just turn around and walk back. You wouldn't have to walk a step forward and then turn around. Now, one thing is that with this door, the character did not actually walk through it. So let's go back to our map, and that's because this wall, there's a wall behind this door, and that's not what we want, because we want our character to not hit a wall. There should be an actual doorway there. And so that's what this B tab, it has these, it might be kind of hard to see what they are, but they're just sort of shadows here. And it has a little white fade at the bottom. So I'll just select one of those, and I'll put that there. And that should be set to allow me to walk onto it. So let's test that. And now if I walk up, there we go. Now I walked through the door. So it looked more realistic, and once the door opened, you actually saw an empty space to walk into instead of a brick wall, which did not make any sense. Okay, so the reason we made a second map was just to make sure that when we start making quests and making all sorts of events, they'll actually keep working even after we leave the map and come back, and stuff won't reset. Or it will if we want to reset, or it won't, and that can be an issue. So it's good to just have that so you can just make sure everything's working correctly. So now let's just set up a basic quest here. And I already made this character. I'll just delete her for now and make a new one. So we're back in F6, which is the event. F6 is the hotkey. This is the event mode. And I'm gonna keep everything kind of close together just so I don't have to keep running all around. And so first of all, let me just point out, you can set your starting position down here by right clicking, and then you can choose these different things. But right now we just want to move the player over. So I can move the player there. I can also just click and drag. However, if we wanted to start inside the house, I wouldn't be able to just click and drag it. So that's when you want to right click. So you can have your player start wherever you want. But we'll start here, and let's double click to add a new event, and it's completely blank. And as I said in the previous video, all these events are just events according to the game. I mean, the game doesn't know that this is a character. It's only a character because we set the graphic to be a character. So double click on graphic, and we can choose these different characters here. And so I'll just choose one here. And the walking animation is on, and it's set to same as characters, and the trigger is action button. And right now it's on fixed, so it won't even move around or anything. And let's just add some text. So we'll double click to add a new event command, and then we can choose whatever we want. This first tab, very first button here is show text. So we'll just say hello, just like in the previous video, and we'll play test that. So now I walk up, click the action button, she turns to face me, says hello, click the action button again, and then she just goes back to facing the same way she was. So how about we make a little quest now? And to do that, let's first create a new quick event, and we'll do a treasure chest just to give us some items. And I'll just go with the first one here. You can see the different options you have here and the graphic you can choose. And again, this is just a shortcut for you. This just adds in some of this code yourself for you, but you can create it yourself. And so whatever, I'll just do the blue chest, and it gives me a potion, hit OK, and there's the event, and I can move it around. And if we double click on it, then we can see that this one, kind of like the door, does this animation. And this is something new, this self switch a equals on, and you'll see at the top, this one actually has 2 pages. And I want to do a different video on switches and variables, so I'm not going to get too much into that here, but I will briefly explain it. And anyway, also it changes your item and it tells you potion was found. And remember, we can edit any of this, so I can hit spacebar to bring this up to edit this line, and I can change this to give me 5 potions if I want, and I can double click, and all that command was is just change items, so I can add another thing so it gives me another item. So you don't have to leave the options as they were. You can do all sorts of things here. You can even do crazy things like have it change your armor when you click on it, because again, the game doesn't know what this is. It's just an event as far as the game knows. So it will do whatever you tell it to do. And that could get you into trouble. So that's just why you have to pay attention to what you're doing. And so I'll just cancel that. And so now you'll notice that it gives us a high potion and 5 potions, but the text is still the same. So let's hit spacebar to bring that up. And I'll just say stuff was found, just because I'm being lazy here. Of course, you might want to actually tell the player exactly what was found. And so here you'll see that it also set some other stuff. It has direction fix set, just so that if you run up to it from a different side, so if I come up from the left side, it won't turn and face me, because otherwise that would select this other frame, and that's part of the animation. We don't want it to face me. It's not a living thing. So that's why that is set, but it's still set same as characters and action button, so I actually have to click on it. So now this self switch. So the reason this self switch is here, and self switches are just on or off, and if I hit spacebar to bring it up, you can see there's 4 different self switches for each event, and the name self switch, there are also regular switches, but self switch is called a self switch because it is for that event only, and no other event cares what this self switch is doing. It is completely unique to this event, and only this event can read this. So as you can see, on or off, and we have it, as it set it, it turns this switch on. And if you look at this second page, you'll see that it's this checkbox here for conditions is set to self switch A is on. So we'll just playtest this, and then I'll explain that if you haven't figured it out already what that means. So I can go down and I can access this from any side. I'll click on it here and stuff was found. And then if I hit the B button, whatever it's mapped to in your game, I can bring up my menu and go to items. And so now you'll see that I do in fact have 5 potions and 1 high potion, and I can back out of this. And so now you'll see that this chest is still open, which is what you would expect because I opened it. And now if I run into this room and I run back out here, look, it's still open, which is correct. It shouldn't have closed by itself or anything like that. And so the way that happens is because of this self switch. So after we open it, the self switch turns on, and now because this second page has self switch A is on and there's no contents here, and the graphic here has changed to the open box, for now forever, unless I add more code to change this, it will always just be open and won't do anything when I click on it. And so that's why you use the self switch. Now you might be wondering why, if you've looked through all of these things, there's this erase event option. Well, why didn't we just erase the event or something like that, or use some other command here to make this stop working? Well, erase event, and I'll go over this more in another video, but erase event is only while you're still on that map. If you leave and come back, that event will be back there again. Plus, we don't actually want to erase this whole thing. We want it to just stay open and still be there. So of course, you can go to this second one and add something. So we can go and double click and click show text and say already open. And we'll hit OK. And make sure our priority and trigger is set, same as characters action button, so it will still work. So let's play test this. And we'll go down here, stuff was found, click on it again, already open. So I can keep clicking on this and nothing will ever happen aside from it telling me that it's already open. So, perfect, that's what we want. Now, let's actually make a little quest and get some XP, or EXP. So we have this character here that we've already made, and let's say she will give us, she'll give us some gold if we give her a potion. That's what she's looking for. She'd really like to buy a potion. So what we can do is we can say item, if potion exists, then some stuff will happen, so she'll say hello, and we can change that. But let's just add some stuff here. So if the potion exists when we go and talk to her, it will give us some gold. So let's just say 20 gold. And then we want to remove the potion from our inventory, from the player's inventory. So we'll say change items, potion, and we'll decrease it now by 1. And so it'll give us gold, take the potion, and she'll say hello, which doesn't really make any sense. So let's play test that and just do it step by step and see if this is working. And she now doesn't exist. What happened? Well, let's go click on this thing. We got our potion, and now there she is. And let's figure out what happened in a second. Let's click on her. Hello. Now let's open our inventory, and we do in fact have 20 gold. Let's open our items, 4 potions instead of the 5 that we got from the chest, so that all worked. But what is going on with her? Well, because this is on item exists, this whole event will only exist if we have a potion, and that's not what we want. We want this event to exist here, but only give us this gold and take the potion if we have the potion. So that's not what we want, because obviously that was screwed up. So with coding, I should say, there are 100 different ways to do one thing. So you'll have to choose which way you want to do it. So one way we can do this is with a conditional branch. So let's add a conditional branch here. And you'll see that there are all these tabs, switches, variables, self-switches that we mentioned before. Something to do with an actor, if it's in the party, name, skill, learned, all this stuff that we can choose. And what a conditional branch is, it is an if-then-else statement, basically. So if something, then do something, otherwise do something else. And it doesn't have to have all those things. That's what this set handling conditions, or set handling when conditions do not apply. That's essentially the else statement, which I'll explain that in a second. So what we're doing is we want to look for the potion in the inventory. So that's on this very last tab, item, and you'll see there's other stuff, gold, armor. So let's click OK. And so now, conditional branch, so this is, you can read this as, if potion is in your inventory, then do this thing, when there's nothing there yet, else do this other thing. So if I open this up, hitting spacebar, I can turn off that else condition if I wanted to. So this will only happen, so there's just no else part. But actually we do want an else, so I'll leave that on. And because we only want to give gold if you do in fact have this potion, I'm going to cut this with Control X and then paste it here with Control V, which you can probably also do by right clicking. Of course I use shortcuts. So now if the potion is in your inventory, then you'll get the 20 gold and she'll take the potion. Else, this other thing. So let's show text and say, get me a potion. And of course, feel free to add a lot more text and be a lot more descriptive than I'm being. I'm trying to be a little quick here. So let's test this out. So we turned off this condition here, so she will always be here. So let's talk to her, and she says, hello, get me a potion, because again, I don't have a potion, so it's running that else condition. Now let's go get the potion. Now we have it in our inventory, and you can always check your inventory just to make sure you know what's happening. So now let's click on her, hello, and she didn't say anything, but let's open up our inventory, and there we have 20 gold, and if I go to our items, we are missing the potion. So that wasn't very clear because she did not say anything, and she also didn't tell us that she wanted anything. So I'll just delete that text there. And so if we talk to her the first time, she'll do this get me a potion as we saw. And now we'll actually add some more text saying, thanks for the potion. Here's 20. Now you can hover in this text box and it'll bring up these shortcuts or these little abbreviations you can use. And because we are talking about our currency unit, which in this case is just the default G, I'm going to do a \G, which you can see down there. And even though it's still just going to be a G because that's what we have it set to, that will replace this with whatever currency you chose. And I'll actually just go do that in a second. But anyway, we'll click OK. So now this is actually telling the player what's happening. But let's go change that currency over in our database under system. So I'll just say $, and you might realize it's going to be on the wrong side, but whatever. And actually, since we're just doing this anyway, let's also add some experience. So let's change our experience, and we can either choose the entire party or a specific character. Because it's only me, we don't have anyone else in our party. I'll just leave it on entire party and increase by, let's just do 100 and show the level up message. I'm not even sure what the how much experience you need to level up, what it's set at for default. So let's click OK and test out those changes we just made. So we'll talk to her, get me a potion. Go down, get the potion, talk to her again, thanks for the potion, here's $20. So there, the \G changed it to the $. And obviously the reason you want to do that is just because then if somewhere along the line you decide to change your currency symbol, it'll change everywhere in the game. Of course, I could have just written the $sign there on my own manually, but then if I change my mind later, I'm going to have to go through every single dialog box and find all of those and change those to something else. So we got experience points, and now it's showing us our level up message, level 2. You can see, and yes, indeed, I'm level 2 here. Ignore the face graphic that it does not match the dog that I'm using. And okay, so that all works correctly. But what if I didn't actually want to give her that potion? She just took it, and what if I had already had that potion and then I went and talked to her and she just took it from me without any choice at all? So we can fix that, and we will add it up in this top part of this conditional branch, because we want to only say this if I already have a potion. If I don't have a potion, then there's no sense in giving me a choice since I don't have one, so she'll just say get me a potion. And so let's add something by double clicking up here, and we'll say, well, first let's show text to actually tell us what's happening, and she'll say, can I have that potion? And so that's going to be the first thing that shows, if you have the potion, can I have that potion? And then again, she's just going to take it because we haven't done anything here. So now we'll add some choices, which is just the second option now. Show choices, and by default it's yes or no. And then when you hit cancel, if you hit cancel, it'll do choice number 2, which in this case is no. And that's probably what we want. That is what we want in this case. So you can add more choices too, depending on the quest whatever you are doing in the event. But in this case, it is just a yes or no question. So we will hit OK. And you can change that. You can change that. Instead of saying yes, we can say give potion or keep potion or whatever we want. So now this kind of looks like a conditional branch. It has new spots for us to add code. So we can add code under yes and add code under no. And we already have this code down here, and we don't want this down here. We want this to happen if we choose yes. So if we say yes, then it'll do it. It'll give us the gold, take the potion. She'll say thanks for the potion, give us the XP. But what if we choose no? So let's double click. Sometimes this gets a little weird. Okay, yeah, that was just glitching on me a little bit. So I just closed it and opened it again. So now under this no command, then we'll just say, why not? But we are not actually going to answer her. We are just going to walk away. So now, again, let's play test it one step at a time, make sure everything's working. That way it's easier to find bugs if we messed something up. So we'll talk to her, get me a potion. Let's get the potions. Can I have that potion? Let's say no. She says, why not? And we'll say yes, thanks for the potion, here's $20. And now we have the $20. Now let's walk up to her again. Can I have that potion? Because again, we had 5 potions from the treasure chest. And so there you go. So now we can just keep giving her potions as long as we have potions. Well, that might be fine. Maybe she just wants as many potions as you can possibly give her, but maybe we don't want her to do that. Maybe we want her to only let us do this quest one time. And so in that case, well, we're going to do something similar to how this treasure chest works, and because we want this to stop working after we complete the quest. So up here under this part, and you can see this is a little bit in a weird order. I usually try to keep things together so it changes everything, and then at the end she says something. So I just cut and pasted that to move it. So after this happens, let's use that self switch technique that we learned earlier. So control self switches right here, and self switch A. So remember, these self switches are unique to each event, so it doesn't matter that we're using the same one as the treasure chest, because this is the self switch on this event, on her, not a self switch on the treasure chest. So it's not going to conflict with each other because they are completely separate self switches. So we turned on the self switch, but we haven't actually changed pages, so that does nothing on its own. It's still going to just be on this page. So let's make a new page. So if we make a new page, you'll see that it reset a lot of these options, the priority and everything. So instead of that, I'm just going to delete this page, and I'm just going to copy it and hit paste to make a second page. So now you'll see it copied everything over, which of course we don't want. So I'm going to delete all this stuff from the second page. So stuff's still on the first page. Second page is clear, but it has the same graphic, so I don't have to go and hunt that down again. Maybe I forgot where she is, what graphic she was. And now we want to turn on that self switch. So when the game runs, it will first check page 2, see if self switch A is on, and if so, it'll just stay here and do nothing. And if self switch A is off, it will check this page, because this doesn't have that requirement of the self switch, and it'll go through it as we wanted it to. So another playtest. Can I have that potion? Yes. And now let's go talk to her again. And I'm clicking and nothing happens, even though I have more potions. She is not responding to me at all. And so that worked, but let's add something just so she's doesn't seem lifeless. Let's just add some text and say, I don't need any more potions. So, and I guess now's a time to mention this. You can add a face graphic here, and if we double click, the default should have face graphics that correspond to the actors. So I think, is that this one? I'm not even sure where she was. Oh, maybe it's this one. And so we can choose that to actually have a face graphic on here. And then you can choose your window. So far we've just been using normal windows, but you can use a dim background or transparent. And these are more for like incidental text in the world. So say you walk up to something and you're talking to yourself and it just says like, or even if it's just sort of like the world telling you something, like there's a locked door, you walk up to a door and try clicking on it to open it and it just says the door is locked. Well, so that you wouldn't use a face graphic because no one's actually talking to you, and you might just want to use like the dim background, and you can hit the preview button to kind of see what it looks like, although this doesn't really show you what it actually looks like in the game. This is more just to check some of this other stuff. And another thing you'll notice in the text box is it has these little arrows here, and that is just sort of a guideline, because if you write, I'll just put a bunch of stuff here, or whatever, that doesn't make any sense. I'll just copy and paste this a few times. So this is all on one line, and you can also change the position of the window. So let's do that. Now let's talk to her again. I don't need any more potions. And as you can see, this runs off the screen, but we do have the face graphic here that we wanted. So that's what those guidelines are for. Let's go back to page 2 and hit spacebar. That's sort of where it might cut off if you have a face graphic. If you don't have a face graphic, then obviously it has a little bit more room to put the text in, so it might cut off around this one. But if you change your font, that's not gonna line up. You know, these are just guidelines. You're still gonna wanna test it in the game, and even better, you might want to just install a script that will do a word wrap for you. So if it does run off the screen, it'll wrap it for you, so it won't run off the screen. And that, you know, once you get into a bigger game and you have a whole lot of text, you might forget to test every single thing. And as you go through, you might be editing text, and it's just a lot safer to have a word wrap script, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But also, what you can do is you can just add some line breaks in here manually. If you add two, you can't add too many or it'll actually go off the screen. You might only be able to have 3. And let's also go here and we'll add this face graphic here. If I remember where it was, actor 3. And of course you can add that into every single one. We didn't add it into this one. And actually, and I'll just do one more thing. I'll add another text box, but this time, well, I'm a dog, so this isn't going to match up, and this isn't even the same face that I was using, but I'll just say, okay. So now it's kind of more like a conversation. She'll say that she doesn't need any more potions, and we'll say, okay. So can I have that potion? And she has a face now. And let's talk to her again. I don't need any more potions. So you can see it's actually still going off the screen, even though I think I cut it off before that arrow. It's still not fitting. And now I say okay. So now we have like a little conversation going. I don't need any more potions. Okay. Pretty simple. So that's how you do a conversation. And as you noticed, I put all of that on her page. So again, you don't want to think of this as really like as a character. This event, you can control any part of the game here. It doesn't actually have to just be this character. So even though it's in this character's event, this is actually my character talking. So it's just kind of a way you have to think about these events. So that is a basic quest, and now what we can do to make it a little bit more interesting is we should be able to cut this with Control X, go into this house, let's paste this here. It's not quite as obvious, so get me a potion, let's walk up here. Oh boy, we found some stuff. And can I have that potion? Yes. So there we go. And that is a basic quest. You can, like I said, there are different ways you can do this. You can add a whole lot of pages here to have, on page 2 she could be requesting some other item, and you can sort of just copy the first page but with something else. So instead of potions, now she wants a high potion, then she wants some other potion, and it just goes on, and she keeps asking for more stuff, and she'll give you more money the further you go, and so it just kind of ramps up, and there's a lot of stuff you can do there. So I guess I can just leave it there for now, and that is a basic quest. You can play around with that stuff, and you can just, of course, look through all the different things here and hover, and it'll tell you a little bit more about that. And stay tuned for the next video, which will be about switches and variables, and we can do a little bit more stuff and have more control over things that way. Thanks.